Good afternoon, folks. I am your host of the ARCA Racing podcast, Colby Evans. It is good to have you all back today on a beautiful, beautiful Wednesday afternoon. First off, I'd like to apologize. I've been away for a long time, just had some personal and some family issues to attend to, but I'm glad that it is all taken care of. I've got a huge list of notes. I got all the ARCA races that I've missed since then, and we will go over every single one of them just for you guys today. So, of course, if you guys haven't figured it out yet, I am Startin' Park Car on Twitter. All of the Startin' Park news, updates, and everything you need to know about Startin' Park Racing, go give it a follow on Twitter. It's a really fun account. I have still over 1,000 Startin' Park picks to post, from NASCAR to truck, Xfinity, and of course to ARCA. So basically, let's get right into what this is. As we all know, ARCA hasn't been doing that well lately, and I'm here to try to save it. There's a NASCAR weekly podcast. Oh, I'm the ARCA podcast. I'm going to try to do this weekly, but I can never guarantee anything because my schedule is very hectic. But nonetheless, let's get right into it. Let's get right into East. So I left off after New Smyrna. Next race up was Pensacola. Now everybody knew going into the race, with just $5,000 as the winning purse money, we were not going to get a big field. And sure enough, that is exactly what we did not get. Just 13 cars. And looking at the race results right here, we had 13 cars show up with 2 starting parks. Dick Doney and, of course, good old Wayne Peterson. So we only had 11 cars that were attempting the full race. And when it comes to that, you're just not going to beat the Gibbs machine. You know, Sammy Smith, fellow Iowa native. You're just not going to beat him. It was actually a pretty decent race. I mean, I'll give ARCA this. Their strength is short tracks. Even with small fields, their strength is short tracks. And I feel like that's what could actually really help the series if they went away with these smaller fields. If they really went away from tracks like Michigan, like Pocono, and stuck to small tracks, I really think it would actually help the series a lot. I really do think it would. But of course, like I said, Sammy Smith dominated the event. Mason Diaz for the Visconti Motorsports team was quite competitive, but again, like I said, you're just not going to meet the Coy Gibbs, Joe Gibbs racing team for Sammy Smith. An update for the Sammy Smith fans, although Ty is set to compete in the 18 for the combo races, Sammy Smith, judging by what we saw at Dover, will still be in those races, but will be in the number 81. It will not be the 18E. It will be the number 81 because it's a lot more distinctive and easier to see. And like I said, you know, the key to entering the race, I mean, last place, Wayne Peterson, I think, got only $1,100. And, you know, man, when you're only running 2 laps, I mean, that's a decent, it's okay, but they just wonder why they're not going to get many car counts. And I'm not here to shatter the payouts. It is what it is. That's why sponsorships mostly pay for everything. And then that's how it's always been in every racing league. Any racing league, the sponsorship always pays for everything. And then you got the prize money to little help people. But for teams like Peterson, and I'll even throw in Hillenberg and Brad Smith, well, that payout money is also very, very important. Very important. So then as we move on to the next race, which was at Nashville. This one I actually was going to cover on the podcast, but sadly, again, some more personal issues came up and I couldn't. And oh my God, I tell you, I didn't have Track Pass. I do not have Track Pass. But one of my buddies let me use his Track Pass account, and by God, I think all of us were going crazy when Mason Mingus won the pole in a full-fledged Andy Hillenberg car and led the first 56 laps and finished third, man. And speaking of which, we'll get onto a little later in the show, but Mason is running again this weekend for Andy Hillenberg, and we can only hope that he'll win that race. God forbid that be the greatest upset, one of the greatest upsets in ARCA in this day and age. But again, just like sadly like Pensacola, we only had 13 cars show up with, again, our 2 starting parks being Dick Doney and Wayne Peterson. The 41 car really struggled the first 3 races of the season. Now, we were at the first race at New Smyrna. It literally sounded like a bomb going off every time it went by. It was a former GMS car that Bruce Cook Racing had purchased, and It's ran 3 races, and it's not finished any of them. 3 or 4 races, and it's not finished any of them because I don't know if the car they bought was just not good enough or what's wrong with it, but it's not any fault to Carson Copville. It's just the car itself ain't that good, sadly, and it's a shame because Carson's a heck of a race car driver. So it was not a starting part for Carson, it was just an early engine failure. But again, this East race showed, yes, we only had 11 cars running the full race, but sometimes that's all you need to have a competitive field. As we had 3 or 4 cars who could have distinctively have won this race. Sammy Smith, Mason Diaz, Mason Mingus, and Connor Jones. And although Sammy Smith won by a wide margin again, still was a very entertaining race. I really do think, I agree with what a lot of people have been saying, that after COVID is kind of over, which it's kind of getting there, when these car counts can get back up, ARCA can be a very, very entertaining series on the short tracks. And that's where they thrive. And I've been saying that forever. ARCA needs to stay on the short tracks. They need to get away from tracks like Pocono and Michigan because it's just going to create bad racing, sadly. So that was Nashville again, and the whole Nashville debacle that happened like a month ago. I'm all for it, but obviously the residents are not, and that's their own fault for moving next to a racetrack. I would gladly, ladies and gentlemen, I would gladly love to live next to a racetrack. That'd be the dream. And then we went into the General Tire 125 at Dover. Now I remember watching this live, and this one was a cluster. Now, ironically enough, this is just an East race. But if you looked at the entry blank I posted on the Start and Park account, other than Daytona and Talladega, this is arguably the best paying ARCA race of the season. Why? I don't know. But 10th place pays $6,000. That's better than what some of the lower tier Xfinity and truck teams are getting. You know, so the will to run this race was actually quite important for a lot of teams, even though we did only have, I believe, 18 cars showed up for this race. And although, once again, Ty Gibbs, who we'll get to him in a minute, dominating the ARCA series, came over to run this race in the 18, and of course I said earlier, then they had Sammy run the 81. And although Ty Gibbs did lead flag to flag, it was a very, very entertaining race nonetheless. He had many comers and goers to try to challenge him, and Josh Berry, Sammy Smith himself, and David Gilliland. But then, of course, the problem was the tires. Well, General Tire, especially for being the sponsor of the race, kind of blew it. A lot of tire accidents in the race, which caused the tire failures of Justin Carroll in a fiery crash, Drew Dollar in a crash, and Raja Carruth. A lot of those guys definitely had their days ruined because of a stupid tire failure. Whereas for a lot of other teams, it was their benefit, as 2 Andy Hillenburg cars got into a top 10 finish, and arguably one of the best payouts that Andy's gotten in a long time, which, of course, put a huge smile on my face, and I hope it put a lot of smiles on your guys' faces, too. Because as more as I'm focusing on the leaders of ARCA, of course, my main focus is the back markers of ARCA, because those are the guys who work the hardest and just get hardly any success out of it, which is just sad. Because I've been in that garage, man, and if you guys could just see what me and Brad Smith go through, what Wayne Peterson goes through, what Andy goes through, that you'd think they would deserve all the wins in the world with how hard those guys work. And some of them, I'm proud to say, have become good friends of mine when I go to the track. I mean, there's nothing cooler when you're riding to the spotter stand with Andy Hillenburg and 2 of his crew guys. There's nothing really cooler than that, you know. And I wish you guys could really experience that, because Andy, one of the nicest guys you will ever meet. Andy Hillenburg, one of the nicest guys you'll ever meet. But anyway, that's kind of the whole thing that came out of that ARCA race at Dover was kind of, wow, they blew it. Despite the good payouts, you kind of had to use it up because you had to buy more tires. But nonetheless, it was a cluster of a race. Although it was good, but it was a cluster with all the tire issues. But again, tire strategy and competitive racing, again, when you mix that together, ARCA can be very entertaining. And that's why I actually did enjoy that race. Now, there hasn't been an East race since Dover, but we do have one coming up this weekend at College Station. This ain't Texas World. Southern National Motorsports Park in Kenly, North Carolina. Apparently, it's a 0.4-mile short track. I've never really heard of it, but it's always good to see new tracks come on the schedule, that's for sure. And we have the entry list up right here. We have 16 cars entered with Wayne again. From the looks of it, for me, we have 3 starting parks in the field. The 06 of Wayne Peterson, the 10 of Owen Smith, and of course the 48 of Brad Smith. Now, if you've not been following Brad's Twitter page, which I'll put a link down in the description, his car has actually been at the Andy Hillenberg race shop. Again, cannot thank for Andy for helping Brad prep his car and keep it maintained, because, you know, Brad's only one guy and he can only do so much. And I've seen him do so much. It's amazing watching that guy work in his 50s. But we have 16 cars, and I actually think we have one of our best ARCA fields for the East Division. I think since New Smyrna. We have 13 full race cars. We got GMS entered. We've got, of course, Gibbs entered. And we actually got Empire Racing entered too. I think we're in for a good ARCA East race this weekend, folks. I really think this is one you guys need to tune into. I don't think Sammy's going to run away with it. We got good Mason Mingus in the same Ford that he raced at Nashville. Man, I know. He's not afraid to move people out of the way. We've seen him do it on the late model circuit. But I would love nothing more to see Mason move that Gibbs car out of the way and get Andy Hillenberg his first win in a long time. We also have some new entries for this race. Cody Efall, who I believe still works for Nice Motorsports. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't know if he does. But he used to be a crew chief there. Apparently some new person called Morgan Alexander. If anyone in the comment section could fill me in, I don't really know much about Morgan Alexander. The 8 car, I believe they did mention who was going to be in there, but currently listed as to be added. And I feel kind of bad because I remember seeing the announcement for the 8 car, so I really wish I could get that driver from Spotlight. Hang on, let's look it up on social media real quick. Bear with me for a second, folks. This is live television. We're gonna look. I'm literally on the ARCA Twitter page right now, folks. By the way, go follow them too. I would recommend following them too right now. So if we can get this dang computer to work here, we're gonna see who's in this 8 car, because I want to give him a shout out. Oh boy. This is what I get for live, guys. Oh boy, this is the best stuff ever. I can't find it. Come on, I can't find it. Well, unfortunately, folks, I can't find it. But either way, who's ever in that 8 car, you know who you are. If I know your name, I'll give you a shout out on next weekend's podcast. Sorry. But in case it's in the news, if you guys did not know, you might see Daniel Dye, who normally drives the 43 for Ben Kennedy Racing, is in a new car this weekend. I said GMS. It is not Jack Wood, but it is Daniel Dye. Apparently, I guess Jack's ARCA schedule has been axed. He's going to move up to the Truck Series, I believe. And Daniel Dye will run the rest of the ARCA East season and some main ARCA races as well for GMS now. I think it's a great opportunity. Daniel's a hell of a driver. I'd love to have him on the show sometime. But he's a hell of a driver. And I really think with the upgrade in GMS equipment, I think he could really start to give Sammy Smith a run for the championship. Even though he is about 40 points behind right now. We still have 4 races to go. And it's going to be tough, though. But I think he could definitely get into the top 3 in the points. And, of course, Davey Callahan, driving for good old fellow motor, Willie Mullins. Another good low-budget guy you guys need to start cheering for. He does have a Twitter account, Mullins Racing. Go follow it. I already am. Big Willie, hell of a guy. I'd love to meet him sometime. Unfortunately, I have not yet, but it's good to see his team showing up for an East race. You don't see that all the time. And it's good to see a new driver. Let's see. Davey Callahan. Davey Callahan, folks. Remember that name. And then, of course, we used to have the 2 entries from Bruce Cook Racing, which is kind of surprising to see. Now, I did explain the situation with the 41 earlier, how they had that GMS car earlier in the season with Carson Coppola, and unfortunately just never finished any races, sadly. They did show up with Josh Berry, I believe, with a new car at Dover, but they are not here with the 41 car at Southern National. And to make it even more surprising, the 42 car does not have Parker Retzlaff in the car. Makes me wonder, did the Ponzi money, I think that's how you pronounce the sponsor, dry up? It's a shame, because Parker was really coming into his own. He didn't really have the best last year, and I think he actually was making a lot of improvement, especially from what I saw in the early races. But there's only one Bruce Cook entry, and it doesn't even have a driver yet. Hopefully, like I said, by Friday or Saturday, we'll get an idea of who's going to be there and who will not in the 42. Also, shout out to Justin Carroll after that fiery crash at Dover and pretty much totaling one of their best ARCA cars. It's good to see him back here at Southern National. It does show me that they do have more than one car, which is good to see because, you know, when it comes to ARCA, when you see fiery and scary wrecks, sometimes those teams don't have many cars. Sometimes it was the only car they have. Like, for instance, go back to Daytona with Scott Reeves. He crashed that car. It was his only car. I hope we can get it repaired. But going back to Justin, it's good to see them there. And hope they can run well and hope they can get some money back for their crashed Dover car. And as for the payouts, I posted it on the Start and Park account. Again, sadly, the winnings are only $5,000 for the winner. But a new thing I have seen on the contingency, new thing on the list is on the competitor side is if all contingency decals, those little tiny stickers that are in front of the number and in front of the front tires, if all of that is met, the winnings actually upgrade to about $10,000. So it's about your usual ARCA payout itself. Second place is about $8,000, and like third place is like $4,800 compared to what it is. But 16th place will more than likely go to Wayne if he only runs one lap. Is I believe $1,100 or $1,000, which is about what he's used to earning. Expect Wayne and Owen to probably only run. Wayne will probably run about 1 or 2 laps. Owen will probably run about 15, 20, and then Brad might even actually try. No, for sure. But usually with these short tracks, Brad doesn't turn the car up because he's only got one. I can vouch for you. He's only got one. He's got a second Ford, but it ain't even close to being ready yet, which is sad because I can't wait to tell you guys the story about that Ford. When it's ready to go, I'd like to have Brad on the show and he can explain everything about that Ford. But I'll just say this, the ARCA East race this weekend I think is going to be one to tune into because even though we're only going to have 13 cars going the distance, I think it'll still be a very entertaining race. And that's kind of all the updates on the ARCA East series. After, of course, 4 races going into the 5th one, the point standings, again, it's kind of hard to decipher it because with only, 8 races on the schedule, Sammy Smith has a pretty hefty margin right now of 22 points. And with these 16 car fields, it's going to be really hard for guys like Mason Diaz and Max Gutierrez and Joey Ice to make that up. It's going to be very, very difficult. So I really think it's kind of a 3-horse race right now. I think Gutierrez and Diaz are the only guys who have a shot at it. But I mean, on average, if that 18 can just finish in the top 5 the next 4 races, he will lock up the championship. We only have 8 guys who have ran the full 4 races so far, but that will go down to 7 as Dick Doney, who is 8th in points despite starting parking every race so far, is not in the race this weekend. So we only have 7 guys who have ran all 4 races this season. But like I said, Sammy is so far ahead, it doesn't look like it's going to be a real entertaining championship battle. But nonetheless, fellow Iowa native winning the championship, I'm all for that. Definitely all for that. So that's kind of all the updates with ARCA East. Like I said, with Daniel Dye joining GMS, that's kind of the biggest news of that series and circuit. But like I said, just because there's only 13 cars does not mean it ain't going to be a good race. I really suggest that you guys watch the race this weekend. I believe it's going to be, I think it's going to be on MAV TV. MAV TV or Track Pass. One of those two, obviously, but I definitely recommend watching those races. Moving on to ARCA West. Obviously, I haven't covered any of the races. I'm pulling them up here right now, so bear with me for a second. Again, this ain't all high-tech podcast equipment, so I'm just doing my best here for you guys. Bear with me for a second. This is what you call live television. And I love saying live television because I screw up all the time. Oh, I'm a clumsy guy, guys. Just get used to it. Well, it started out with a combination race, and I'll talk about it more. I'm going to give a small debrief because it actually was a combination race with the main circuit was at Phoenix. We had a decent field, 30 cars. It was just a shame that 4 cars got taken out on the first lap, and they were all full race cars, and 3 of them were actually top 5, top 10 contenders. I'm going to give the short version because, like I said, I'll get into it more later. Ty Gibbs dominated, won. We all expected that. But as for the East drivers, you had Derek Kraus, who was driving just an extra entry for truck practice. But it was Jesse Love and Todd Souza who would actually finish 1-2 for the West standings. Todd Souza, as many of you guys know, has been a long time competitor on the West Circuit and only has that one win that came 13 years ago. But we had a lot of interesting entries. It was actually a semi-decent race with how many cars we had. Let's see, I think we had 21 of our 30 starters finish, which for West racing is pretty good, actually. Like I said, the race itself wasn't anything special because I feel like Phoenix has lost a lot of luster ever since they put in all that traction compound, but it was still a good race. And like I said, ARCA shows it can still go on the short tracks because that's just where the racing is a lot better. And I think we can all agree with that. And even though despite having one starting part with Brad being there, we still had 29 full race cars, and it put on a heck of a show. Now, the most recent West race actually took place just last weekend with the annual West race at Sonoma. Unfortunately, we didn't have a biggest field as we usually had. We had 22 cars when on average we're used to getting about 30 cars. And that's okay. It still provided a good race. I got to say a shout out though to poor Zane Smith and MMI Motorsports. They've ran 2 races this season and have completed no laps. Phoenix, they got wiped out in that lap 1 crash. And then in this race at Sonoma, they blew an oil line on the first. That's got to suck, man. All that work, time and money to get to the track. Well-prepped car. MMI Motorsports is a good team. But unfortunately, bad luck, man. 2 races, no laps. No laps completed. That's just unfortunate. That's all I can say. It's just unfortunate. Well, maybe it was the 14 was a fully prepped SHR car with Chad Bryan, I believe, as the crew chief. And there was no beating that car. They actually showed up with the Stewart Haas Racing hauler. And that's when you know, man. Big league crew members, big league team, and it's hard to beat them. Chase had an easy victory leading all laps. The standouts of this race were, and I'm going to butcher this name so badly, I just want to say that up front, Paul Pedroncelli Jr. Paul, I'm so sorry if I butchered your name, but hell of a job, buddy, finishing 3rd. Hell of a job after starting 14th. I'm sorry I butchered your name, but on behalf of all the West fans, great job. And a shout out to Bridget Burgess getting a top 10. And it's good to see. And Bobby Hillis was a top 10. If you didn't show it, Brock Beard showed his car. Oh my God. If there's one thing that me and a lot of the low budget fans love, neon. Neon orange. What a beautiful car that was with the neon orange paint scheme, and the yellow rims. Beautiful. Absolutely gorgeous. And the race itself was actually, like I said, quite entertaining. We had a lot of wrecks. We had a lot of action. But again, no matter what you were going to do, you were not going to run down that 14 car. That was just the sad truth. Even though he didn't even start on the pole. Jake Drew for the Bruncati team started on pole. But you just weren't going to beat Chase Briscoe that day, sadly. So even though we're only 2 races into the season, honestly, the guy who I'd love to win the championship is leading the championship, our man Todd Souza. Despite not winning the race, he leads the championship. We only have 12 guys, it looks like, going after the championship. We have Todd in first, Paul is in second, Cole Moore is in third, Dean Thompson is fourth, and Trevor Huddleston is fifth. As it looks right now, with 2 races in, the championship is still anybody's game. I'd even say down to 12th place. Because 12th place is only 23 points behind. I'd say it's still anyone's game. Easily anyone's game. But as for said, West usually kind of continues their series through the rest of the year. And of course, they're going to end it way in November with the Cup Series at the finale. So, although the West Circuit ain't that long this year, I think 11 races, if I'm correct. Still recommend watching that series. You know, Bill McAnally still puts a lot of money into that series. Very entertaining series to watch. The ones to watch out, though, Takuma Koga, he's improving a little bit. I would watch him. Bridget, definitely watch Bridget. I think she's going to be a sleeper in a lot of these races because they got a good car. They got a good car, and her mom is a hell of a crew chief. I definitely watch her. And Pedro Seeley Jr. God, man, I hate butchering that name because it's such a cool name, but Paul Pedro Seeley Jr. If I'm butchering that, I'm so sorry. But I would definitely recommend watching those guys because they'll be the sleepers. But if Todd Souza could close out the ARCA West Championship, it'd be a great underdog story for a guy who's worked so hard to not get much success in this business. That is for sure. So that was kind of ARCA East and ARCA West. Again, they have not had many races since I stopped doing this, and now I've kind of realized I've only done a couple of races. It's the main series that we're now looking at, and well, ironically enough, there's not much to talk about. It's been either pretty much Corey Heim or Ty Gibbs. And sadly, that's just kind of how it is with Venerini and Gibbs being the 2 powerhouses of ARCA right now. But we still can talk about every race. Talladega, like a lot of people, was very, very worried about going into Talladega. Last year, we had 21 cars. It was no in terms, show. It was boring. It was crap. This year, though, was a great sign. We had 29 cars. No starting parks either. And let me say this. It was a hell of a race. Those guys were battling every single lap, 2 by 2. Rarely did it get boring at all. And I was there. If you guys followed on the Start and Park account, I was actually there working for Brad Smith, and I tell you, seeing Talladega for the first time, words cannot do it justice. Words cannot do it justice. If you have not been to Talladega Superspeedway and you are a fan of NASCAR, you got to go. Even if you live in California, you got to go. You just have to. It's a very, very fun track, and it's just amazing to see all those cars going so fast, so quickly. And then, of course, seeing Logano's flip live, that was pretty cool too. But we're not done with that. We're about ARCA. And again, from start to finish, it was very entertaining to watch. From pit road, I was kind of the on-site tire maintainer and helper when needed. Didn't really do much, but nonetheless, still grateful for over-the-wall opportunities when I can get them. Obviously, for Brad, you know, we have the legacy motor. Could not hang in the draft, so unfortunately, you did not see the red 48 in the draft. You just saw us getting lapped. We were trying to run the whole race on one set of tires. Got about 3/4 of the way there when the left front decided to blow, and well, that was it. That was it, unfortunately. It really sucked because we missed a hell of a finish, man. I remember looking up at the scoring monitor, and when it said that 63 finished second, oh, like everyone else, man, I was so upset because, man, how cool would that have been for Jeff Spraker and Dave Mater to win that race? Oh, man, that would have been so cool. But, and yeah, like I said, we had a couple of cars crash. We actually had Ty Gibbs crash in a fiery accident and Greg Van Alst crash out too. I mean, again, ARCA used to be very entertaining at Talladega, and they really don't have the better COT races. But man, did they come to Talladega with a heck of a package and some very aggressive racers. It was a very, very good race. That is for sure, was Talladega ARCA. Then, ironically enough, I was there the very next race. Just biffed my day. I was there the very next race at Talladega, but it just occurred to me I skipped Phoenix because that's what I just covered in the West Circuit. Ty Gibbs dominated Phoenix. Let's just put it like that. I already covered on the West side, so Ty Gibbs is clear. It's either going to be Corey Heim or Ty Gibbs winning most of these races this season. So as we go into Kansas, again, we only had 20 cars, which is okay. It's 2 more cars than we had the previous 2 races. Again, I worked for Brad Smith. Just so much fun. If you guys follow the start and parking, I try to post as much as I can, but man, when you're one car and you're bringing the same car to a 3/8 mile, same car to a 2.66 mile, and the same car to 1.5 mile, takes its toll. And I wish I could tell you guys all the stories about that car that weekend. I think we were running like 12 pounds overweight, but it didn't matter because of how slow we were. It was just a lot of fun. It was so much fun. I was a spotter, actually, for that ARCA race at Kansas. I was up on the spotter stand for that 48 car. Contrary to what it says, we did not start and park that race. We had Uncle Ed down there ready to catch can and fuel. And if we needed so, we had a practice set of tires from Andy that was going to be put on the car by his crew if we needed it. And we were running ahead of the 10 car of Jason Miles. We were running a good pace. But unfortunately, after about 20 laps, the motor, I could visibly see it myself, the motor was starting to let go, and we just went ahead and decided to park it. Which was sad, because if we had finished that race, I think we would have gotten 13th or 14th, which would have been our best result of the season. Obviously, the ARCA race at Kansas, again, Ty Gibbs, man, just dominated that race. Even the Venerini cars could not keep up. Was marred by a scary lap 1 crash with Brett Holmes and Scott Melton. I remember being on the spotter stand. It was quite scary to watch the crash from up there. Brett got loose and Scott nowhere to go. Yeah, just nowhere to go. And man, it's kind of funny seeing all the spotters react like that. And as you guys might have seen, the 20 car got a pit penalty, and it's actually one of the coolest things that not many people got to see. I don't think anyone got to see it. But watching the spotter for the 20 car and the ARC official go at it, tell you, man, you fight for everything in this business. And when you lose a spot for a stupid call, you fight for it. Props to that spotter for fighting the official. Unfortunately, they didn't get what they wanted. Ty Gibbs cruised to an easy victory. We had 20 cars, like I said, entered. We only had a couple of starting parks. We saw the return of the 0-1 for as a starting park with Owen Smith driving, which was good to see. Obviously, Owen Smith, just another guy who's looking for the opportunities, doing the starting park jobs, trying to get the full race opportunities. All you can do is respect that, because that's how you start in this business. You have to start at the very bottom and claw your way up if you don't have any money. And that's where you get my respect from. Ironically enough, after that race, we actually had some help from that race. It was kind of cool. Oh, the comment section of people is certainly interesting on this podcast. No, you cannot. I wish I could say his comment, but I can't. But going back, we actually had DNF racers helping us out on the helping us out on the 48 car, and he's a good kid. If he just learns a little bit more about this, he could really be a great asset. I hope to see him this year in the fall. And ironically enough, you always hear about the sheet metal scalpers, who wait after the cars. That was who wait on the cars after they crash to get the free sheet metal afterwards. I hate those people, but I'm one of them, so I can't really joke about that. But going back to what I'm saying is here 1 second, guys. This is live TV right here. Hang on. He actually got a piece of the 69 car, and I got the fender from the 23 car. So, as much as I hate the sheet metal scalpers, unfortunately, I have to say that I'm one of them, just because it's kind of fun to do. But remember this: if you are a sheet metal scalper after these cars crash and you want to get it, ask. Number one rule: you have to ask. Never take it without asking. But I just thought I would share that with you guys because it's kind of funny. But that was kind of Kansas again. You just don't. People who think ARCA is boring, man, it's not. It may look boring, but if you're there in the garage or if you're there at the race, it's a lot more entertaining than you think. All these people who say, "Oh, what happened to ARCA? ARCA used to be fun." Go to one, work in the garage, and you tell me you're not having fun. You can't tell me that with a straight face. I savor those opportunities to work with guys like Brad Smith and Wayne Peterson. Hardest working guys ever. Mad respect. I wish I could show you guys pictures of their hauler. Oh my God, we don't have a hauler. We had a trailer. And it was just madly entertaining. That's all I can say. Just madly entertaining. Next race out was Toledo. And, of course, this is where the sad car counts come in. We only had 14 cars for this race with 3 starting parks, all three of them being from Andy Hillenberg. I don't know what to say about this race again. It was good, though. We had the good old bump and run, the 20 car and the 18 beating the crap out of each other. It was, again, only 11 full race cars, but very, very entertaining race to watch. More than likely going to be between them this season, so I'll get used to that. But I'm still okay with it. But it was a great, I would actually give it about an 8 out of 10 race, to be honest with you guys. Honestly, I would. We had some unlikely entries. The 30, which is normally an East entry, was fielded by Cole Williams. Good to see some other names that you don't normally see all the time in the field. We had Gracie finally finish a race, which was good to see, albeit she didn't do all that good, finishing 7th. Then we have the underdog story of Alex Club. And let me tell you guys, Alex, hard-working dude. One of the nicest guys I've ever met. And he's a big dude, but he's a big, nice dude. I love him so much. Met him last year at Kansas. You just want to hug him because he's a good dude. He's a big, jolly dude. I love Alex. Love him to death. And I love his guys. And I just love Richmond Club Motorsports. Nothing cooler than saying you can hang out with Tim Richmond. But Alex got a top 10 finish. I believe at both Kansas and here at Toledo. 2 top 10 finishes with, I believe this is a legacy car. It's a Ford. I think it's one of the cars he purchased from Andy. Again, I'm not quite sure about that. But, light issues up there. But, it was kind of a good feel-good story to see Alex get a top 10 because he worked so hard. I think they ran that race on 1 set of tires, if I'm correct. A.J. Moyer. Wayne, for people who did not know, Wayne Peterson does have more than 1 car. He's got a Ford now. And he debuted it with A.J. Moyer. And they ran the whole race, which was quite impressive. So I'm curious to see, people think, these young, old guys in the sport like Andy, Brad, and Wayne are dying. No, they're not. They're still plugging away as much as they can. And of course, Brad did try to attempt this full race. We got 135 laps in before a real handling issue put him out of the race. But I would say this. Again, despite a small field, still a very entertaining race. And I think that's all I can keep saying. I just think we need about 5 more competitive cars. Like, even when you go back to 3 years ago, in 2018, we would have 20 cars, but we'd have about 10 cars who could actually win. That was good racing. It was actually pretty good. It really was. Going on to race number 6, which was, I believe, Charlotte. Yes, it was. We actually had a decent field size for this race. We had 23 cars. We originally had 26, but we had 3 withdraw. We had some park time entries like Van Alst, Kimmel, and the 63 for Dave Mader come back, and the 94 for Cram of Chris Hacker. Again, you're just not going to beat Ty Gibbs. Once again, flag to flag with the 20 car coming in second. You're just not gonna beat them. Sadly, it's going to take a lot to beat that team, and props to them. Ty's a heck of a driver. But on the back of the field was quite fun to see. Dave Mader, Andy Jankowiak, I think that's how you pronounce the name, and Chris Hacker all fighting for top 10 finishes, which was quite impressive. It was great to see Brad finish a race. I posted it was the first race that Brad had finished since Winchester of last fall. So it was good to see Brad Smith get to the end. It was great to see Chuck Buchanan Jr. back after his bad crash at New Smyrna earlier this year, totaling their Chevrolet. Tony Breidinger, I believe, had an engine issue. And then, of course, Jason Miles crashed, which is a shame because that Chevrolet was a good car for Andy. Definitely was a good car. But, of course, like I said, Charlotte, I had put it on with Michigan. It does not need to be on the ARCA schedule. It just does not. I think it's too big. And you just don't have enough cars anymore. I think if you did it back when we had 40 cars back in like 2008 or 9, very entertaining. But I think it's just too big, too boring. And then we had a very interesting race, ARCA at Mid-Ohio. We had 17 cars. And boy, let me tell you though, I was kind of glad I missed this race. This was boring. Ty is an amazing road racer. And although you had some other unlikely entries in drivership like Shige Hattori's team with Austin Hill and Stanton Barrett driving for Andy, just nobody was going to beat Ty. Did not lead flag to flag though, but led the majority of the race. And of course went on to win now. Corey Hine though still holding onto the points lead though. But it was kind of funny about this race was that we had a first lap caution, okay? We had 4 cars who were going to start and park this race. Mark Green, Brad Smith, Tony Constantino, and Owen Smith. They all just rode the caution laps. And then they proceeded to take the green flag and then immediately pull in. Which was kind of funny, but that's how the start and park game works. But the funniest thing was when the 02's pictures came out. This was a second car that was called upon by ARCA for Rev Racing to get a bigger field. And they put the Young's Motorsports font on the side, but on the roof just had a normal 2. I'm like, that is start and parking ARCA at its finest. And it was great to see it back. And I'm so happy I have a picture of it. Because it was great to see Mark come back, but it's even funnier to see how he did come back in a blank white car that looks... It probably wasn't even set up for a road race either. It probably wasn't. But that is just funny. That's all it was. Same thing with Brad. Car was not set up for a road race. Just kind of rode around and then pulled in. That was the plan. But like I said, it was great to see Stanton Barrick and Arnaut Koch. Or Koch, or however you pronounce it. Arnaut and Stanton had great runs for Andy. Did a great job in those cars. it was good to see because Andy, like I said, had a tough week at Charlotte. It was great to see him rebound. But we don't have another ARCA main race for, I think, a while, actually. A couple of weeks, definitely. I will actually be working with Brad Smith again soon, but I'll let you guys know that in a second. But coming out of that race, we our point standings look like this. Corey Heim leads Ty by just 1 point. So it's just gonna be between them more than likely. We have Thad Moffitt in third, but Thad is not actually. We don't know if he's running the full season yet. We do not know that yet. Well, he's not going to win the championship. It's a 2-horse race, just like the East Circuit. Second place, Thad is behind by 45 points. So it's a 2-horse race. Nick Sanchez, I believe, is the only other full season car confirmed, and he's in 4th place in points. He's almost 100 back. Drew Dollar, I really think Drew Dollar is not running the full season. He's only running the races that he has the money for. Kyle Sieg, unfortunately, with their Dover crash, did have to miss, I believe it was Charlotte, or the race after Dover, whatever it was. No, it was Toledo. They missed Toledo. So, unfortunately, his bid for the championship is over, but it looks like they might run the rest of the season anyway, just to get him experience and see how high they can finish in the points. Jack Wood, again, I already kind of discussed earlier with Daniel Dye of kind of what happened to him. How he's more in the lines of going truck racing now. And, of course, good old Brad Smith. You know, we're used to him finishing in the top 10 every week. He's 9th right now. And probably by the end of the season will be about 6th or 7th in points. And it's just fun to see a guy like Brad at the top points. Oh, it's funny. It's great, and it's funny, and it's why I love ARCA, and it's why you guys got to support this series, man. We just need the fan support. I'm telling you guys, if we can get the fan support back into the series, because I've said it once, and I'll keep saying it. The Coca-Cola money that went into iRacing should have put that into ARCA. Would have definitely helped the series. Because if we can get more cars into the series and more money, it doesn't have to be the daddy's money races. And it can be old school, good old fashioned racing like it was 15 years ago. I promise you guys. And like I said, coming out of, we had some awards. We always have the sweet move of the race. We always have the General Tire Pole Award. Of course, you know, Jake Drew won the pole at Sonoma, but of course, Chase Briscoe kind of swept the rest with the winning move of the race award and the fastest lap award. And Ty Gibbs did pretty much the same. Also, the Reese's sweet move of the race, I couldn't quite find it, but I think it went to Chase. But I know that Ty's move for the lead at Mid-Ohio won the Reese's sweet move of the race. And let me tell you straight up, having Reese's in a sponsor in ARCA, delicious. I love Reese's so much. There's your sponsorship plug, Reese's. I get parched. There's your sponsorship, Aquafina. But yeah, that's kind of it. We didn't have much in the news. I pretty much told you guys about the upcoming ARCA race this weekend in Southern National for the East Division. Like I said earlier, I will be working again with Brad Smith, probably about 2 to 3 more races this season, and I will keep you guys up to date on that stuff. Hopefully, my next race with Brad will be Elko up in Minnesota. Would love to go there, and if it is, I'll try to give you guys as much content as I can. Again, like I told you guys before, you just got to keep supporting this series. I know you guys love this series as much as I do. I'm going to try to get some people on the show. I've been saying that for a while, trying to get some people on the show. It's not easy, you know, especially with COVID. It's not easy. But I'd love to have somebody on the show this time to try to also get the name of ARCA out there. I got a list of people who I'm going to try to contact. So hopefully we'll have a guest on in the near future. Can only hope so. I'd love that. I know you guys would love that too. It helped to get the channel some more exposure. But yeah, as always, you gotta like the show, subscribe to the show, share the show, get the ARCA name out there, folks. We can do it. I know we can. And you gotta thank the good sponsors that support the series: Suit Chief, Hers, Reese's, of course, Menards, and all the other great sponsors of ARCA. Thank you for supporting a series that I still care about very, very, very much. And as always, to everyone else, thank you for joining in for a lovely, looks like 50 minutes. I hope you all love this. Hope you have a great rest of your day, and goodbye.